All right, 10,000, the big 10K. We made it. We made it. Thank you so much. Well, you made it. I've just been putting up videos and streaming, but you guys made it happen. Thank you so much. Thanks to everyone who subscribed. To celebrate 10K subs, we're doing two things. One is a video I'll make later about kind of everything I've done in esports so far, but right now we are going to answer your questions. So we had an AMA post on the community tab, the post tab on YouTube. If you submitted the questions before the deadline, I have them included. I'm gonna try to answer all of them. However, some of you submitted like multiple questions, which I really appreciate. And then some of you also submitted questions that require long answers. So this video is gonna be a little long. I'm gonna try to keep it as short as possible, but we're also gonna reserve a set number of questions for a membership video as well, just to break it apart. So if your question wasn't answered here, it's most likely in the membership video. I'll try to list that out so you know like what questions are being answered on the other side. But let's get started. We got a lot to get through, so let's get started. Is it harder mentally to climb to the top or to stay there? What changed in your mindset after becoming a Masters winning team? Well, first of all, thank you for including me in the Masters winning team. I assume this is about competition. I would say that it's always harder to stay up there because once you reach the top, you don't have as clear of a goal. Before, you always had at least one standard, like you had a standard that you're trying to beat, and now you're trying to beat yourself basically. So that's tough. And then also everyone has a target on your back now. So you're also getting targeted way more. So it's always gonna be harder to stay on the top. If you could remove one agent from the game, who would it be? Ooh, if I had to remove one, okay, if I had to remove one, it'd be Chamber or ISO because I suck at Chamber and ISO. But therefore I hate playing against them because if the other person is good with it, but I know I suck with it and I can never ever be as good as them, I mean, that's just not fun. ISO or Chamber? If I had to choose one, it'd be Chamber. A bit of a long question, but basically you're saying, since developing your brand identity has adapting to the culture and workflow of different companies or orgs been easier or harder? Do you still find it an issue, and how would someone go about it? And then bonus question, ESPA bias. We'll get to the ESPA bias. Have I gotten better at it? Yeah. But I think I've gotten better at it just because I've worked with so many different orgs and people now that it's more just you learn how to do that. You learn how to adjust. And I think it'd be the same with people just working at different companies. Even within just one culture, like one country, different companies have different cultures and you struggle with that. The initial struggle I had though was that there was an innate bias coming towards me within Korea because either they didn't view me as Korean or they didn't view me as American. But I'm like neither one nor the other in terms of the stereotyping that Korea had. So it was like, well, now I'm just kind of caught in the middle and I can't get the benefits of either stereotype either. So that was the tough part. But over time, you know, I've learned to adapt, to have priority on what I think is important and retain that, you know, set a hard line not to cross. But before that, try to figure out and listen to what they need and try to adjust to that. I'm not always the best at it, but I try my best. So that's how I've adjusted. Any tips? Yeah, I mean, again, I think it's a lot of listening and observing, just seeing what clicks for the other people. It's always easier to adapt yourself than force other people to adapt to you. As for bias, I don't really have one, I'm sorry. If I had, I mean, I'm just more familiar with, who is it? Karina and Winter. But they're just more prominent, I think, in a lot of media. I guess I'll go with Winter. Am I making Karina fans angry? I have nothing against Karina. I don't know. I think aespa's music is nice. 2024, you weren't allowed to continue casting anymore for 2025. After some time, you joined Nongshim. So was there any connection between you getting fired from Pacific and you joining, or would we have a Nongshim Red First Choba regardless? So there's a direct correlation there, because if I was casting, I would not be with Nongshim Red Force. I think my personal rule of thumb is I wouldn't want to be partnered to a team if I'm casting. If I'm doing just analyst desk work or other broadcast work, I think it's fine. But casting is just a can of worms of people saying that you're being biased, even if you're not. And so that and a conflict of interest. So that's just a can of worms that I wouldn't want to open. But yeah, because I was told that I wasn't going to be invited back to cast, I was trying to figure out, okay, how else can I continue to do the work I like to do and try to find a different avenue to contribute to the VCTC. And the opportunity arose, and I saw an opportunity to try to work with Nongshim Red Force, so I approached them. You casted events for many different things, such as Cookie Run, Valorant, Dota, even rock climbing. True. What differs for each of these in your personal prep, and where do you find enjoyment and passion in casting overall with so many different things? We've had some similar questions. about like how I prep for different types of games and things like that. Do you need a deep understanding? So you have to remember that it kind of depends on your role as well. Like, am I expected to be the analytical person that really understands the nitty-gritty? Am I just hosting the stage? Am I, casting / hosting kind of as the play-by-play? There's different roles, so the level of understanding differs. But how do you prep, or how does it differ? I mean, the pattern doesn't differ too much. It's a lot of history research on what's been going on, obviously trying to understand the basic of the game or the sport, but then seeing, okay, what's been the storyline? The storylines are generally always the most important thing, especially if you're not expected to be the expert, which hopefully, if I'm being asked to do something completely new and the game isn't new, like if it's been around a while, hopefully I'm not being asked to be the expert, at least not right away on the first event. And then you're trying to learn, okay, well, what's the history? What's the story here? What's the importance? And things like that. And then you want to understand what makes it click. Like, what are the important moments, right? What is hype about this? So that you can start building towards that. So I think that's a lot of things. Now, when I did a lot of desk hosting, a funny part is I used to study the memes of each community and audience. Not because I wanted to be hip with the kids, but because I had to understand it when it was referenced. Because if the host looked lost, I can't carry that energy forward anymore. So I had to be able to do that. And then obviously if there was a moment where it was very fitting, me injecting that would also make the community happy, because they'd be like, oh, he's one of us. So I used to literally like scour Reddit and social media and like ask the people who I know were very engaged in that for like, hey, what are the inside jokes here? Like, what are the memes? And just study that, as funny as that sounds. So that's a big part. But yeah, deep understanding of the game, it kind of differs. I would say if I'm play-by-play, I focus more on playing the game a lot. So I just understand the, what makes it fun, what people like about the game. So I'm understanding the highs and lows of it. And then obviously still watching a lot. If I am expected to be expert, then it's like really, really giga VOD review. And sometimes there just isn't that much material. Like Cookie Run was one where there just wasn't that much material. So then I had a chance to sit down with the Korean casters who had been casting it for a while, like ask them and things like that. And you just have to really break things down. So becoming the expert is much more like sitting down, breaking down VODs, whereas others is I take the approach of playing the game, engaging with the community, watching more of it, and understanding what people liked so that I can continue carrying that forward. As a professional caster and analyst, what was the most challenging thing you faced and how did you overcome it? Okay. You had a couple other questions about what's the most memorable. Let's focus on what's the most challenging thing you faced. The most challenging thing I faced was probably overcoming the viewpoint that people had around me. My relatives didn't really accept that this was a real job until much later. My parents were supportive, but obviously I had to kind of convince them, and they didn't really understand it at first. But my friends from school, a lot of them, I was hearing things from behind my back that they thought this was a waste of time, things like that. So overcoming that and trying to ignore the noise. And then even while you're working, ignoring the noise and taking just what you need from it, from the public as well. That's always the toughest part. Do I have any regrets though? No regrets. Oh, I will say also as a freelancer, like when I'm freelancing, another tough part is you just never know. You just never know. I mean, I was casting Pacific for 2 years and like, I didn't think it was cushy. I didn't think I was guaranteed, but also I think it was surprising for most of us. So that I wasn't invited back. I would like to think that I was putting in, the best work that I could and putting in effort and improving every time. So as I have done for the past 15 years. So yeah, that's the other thing. You just never know. If you get a chance to be casting again, would you choose to do it or would you stick with the watch parties? Would I be doing it again? If I was given the chance, I would cast again. I just think there's more for me to be able to do and contribute in casting. What is the one thing you notice in the current timeline of esports which hasn't changed across the years of your career? Almost everything. I think esports hasn't changed enough, actually, over the past decades. It's still, like sponsorships have grown a little bit. We have some more high-end sponsorships for the bigger events, but I think sponsorships mostly have still kind of stagnated. I think the way sponsorship is done hasn't changed much. I think the production has changed a little bit, but it's still been stagnant for the past 10 years or so. A lot of it just hasn't changed. I mean, yeah, I guess we have like more league formats and things like that. But in the grand scheme of things, I don't think it's changed enough, actually. With all the different personalities you've met across the years, if you got stranded on a deserted island and could only pick 5 pros or anyone from the esports scene to help you survive, who are you drafting and why? And if you could bring 1 suitcase of any food, why is it Mira's K-pop Demon Hunter Shin Ramen Cup Noodles the best flavor? Well, you already answered the question about the cup noodles. It's because it's the best flavor. But, who would I draft to survive on a deserted island? Okay, well, number 1 would be Faker. I mean, this guy's just smart. Like, he's just actually smart. And he's quite mature, too. But he's just smart. Like, he reads a lot of books. He's got a lot of different knowledge. He's got a good mindset. You know, he's been through a lot. So Faker for sure. There's a reason he's one of the GOATs. 2, I would draft Tasteless, the caster. Some of you might remember him casting Valorant for a little bit, but he's obviously very much well known for his StarCraft work. But Tasteless, I could just listen to him and chat with him all day. He's just a funny guy, very, very relaxed, very easy to talk to. And he's generally a pretty optimistic guy as well. So I would take Tasteless. 3, I would draft Devi from Paper Rex because he can fish and he knows fishing and he likes fishing. So that way our food is at least a little bit guaranteed. So I would go with Devi. Now the last 2, I'm not sure. There's a lot of different options, but man, I'm trying to think. Like, I feel like I need a strength stat. You know, I need a strength character here. Listen, retired, but let's go with Pasha Biceps. Pasha Biceps from CS. I mean, definitely, as the name says, has the strength stat. And I don't know him personally, but he always seemed like a good person to have on a team, like a good character to have on a team. So Pasha Biceps. And then lastly, see, it's funny because Frost, the head coach of GE right now, would be someone I would consider, but I feel like Frost and Tasteless, one of them would be driven crazy by the other. Maybe not, but I feel like they would. So I don't know if that would work. You know what? I'm gonna go with a bit of a just a gut feeling. I'm gonna draft Seb from Dota. I don't know if he's with a team right now, actually. It's been a little while. But I'm gonna go with Seb just because, listen, if you're able to be that creative and that talented in a game like Dota, I mean, you gotta be able to come up with solutions on a deserted island. So Seb. One time on Platchat, you said, I guess I'm just a Korean team hater. So why don't you believe in Korean teams even after Masters winners Gen.G and T1 and with teams like DRS making it deep? Is it cope? Is it reverse psychology? Okay, so I said that just because I get that flack a lot from Korean fans. They're always like, oh, he just hates Korean teams. Like he's a traitor. Yeah, like I get that a lot. I don't actually hate Korean teams. That's not true. But I said it more tongue-in-cheek. However, I do doubt them more than other people. And I think part of that is just this innate belief that I think there needs to be more instinctual play, like trained in Korea. And I do think it's gotten better. I think the likes of Nongshim have made it better. I think the newer T1 rosters have been getting better at it. I think the new members that KRX has picked up have been getting better at it. So I think it's been a generational change as well. So I'm coming around to it. But I've just always believed that, yeah, the fundamentals are good, but now we've already seen, like in the beginning I was hyped for DRX, and Vision Strikers rather. But after like the second time, I'm seeing the playbook's great, but it runs out and it's over. So do you have the edge? And I wasn't really seeing that. But now things are changing, so I should come around to it. But yeah, so in a way it was me saying that because I didn't truly believe that it was possible, but also because I wanted it to be known that I think that's the problem. That there isn't the edge to actually lift the trophies. Obviously, since then, that has changed. How would you compare your experience to an established esport versus a newer esport? So the examples are Dota versus Valorant. I think the examples are a little bit wrong because while Valorant is newer, Riot Games is not new to esports. So I think that's one thing. But if I were to compare it to what I would consider a newer esport, like let's say Cookie Run, the difference is that, if you haven't been part of it, you have no idea. A newer, smaller esports scene is just it's so fun. Everyone's having so much fun. Everyone's so excited. Yeah, sometimes it's a little bit too happy-go-lucky and nice try, and yeah, sometimes it's not brutal enough, but it's very passionate. You can really feel the fun in it, and I think that's the difference. I think established esports sometimes it's a little bit too focused on just the brutal reality of competition, or a little bit too commercialized, and that's necessary. But it's always a good reminder, like every now and then, try to engage in a newer esport. It's a good reminder of why we're excited about it in the first place. Be honest, how many times have you said last game and then played 5 more ranked matches? Okay, I'm gonna be real honest, this hasn't happened in a long time. Probably not since League of Legends, like when I was grinding League. So I wanna say like 2014. So I think you're asking if I could create a duo from like combining different casters. I'm not gonna answer this because I just think you can't create a dream duo by separating chemistry. I mean, yeah, maybe you don't think there's much chemistry in that duo right now and you're like, ooh, but I think there's power in that being built up. So the best casters are usually ones who have been doing it a long time together, and then you build upon that. So yeah, I'm not really going, I mean, I just couldn't. I can't really come up with one. I can't really come up with one. So what does faithful mean to you in everything you do, be it translation, casting, or co-streaming? Interesting question, very philosophical. So first and foremost, I am religious, I'm a Christian. So anytime I hear the word faith or faithful, the first thing for me is it always makes me think about, my faith in God and Jesus. But in terms of work, since it seems like that's what you're specifying, I think faithful would be staying true to what I believe is the best thing. So putting in that effort to really fulfill that. So whether it's casting, whether it's translating, making sure I think I'm delivering what I believe is the best way to translate, which to me is more like interpreting and sending the same message rather than word for word. Casting, it would be about telling a story. Co-streaming, actually I've struggled with because I'm still trying to figure out what I think is the best direction. But I'm coming around, I'm kind of filtering it down. We're getting there. But yeah, faithful, that's what it would be. Really loved your coverage of Pacific Ascension matches last year. Will we get more content like that? So team reviews and things like that. Yes, I'd like to do more of that. This year there's not an Ascension, so maybe we could do it for the teams that come up into the playoff bracket. Definitely where there's cases where it's just like, like people just aren't gonna know about these teams, and I think there is value in all of us getting to know them better. Even in a lot of cases, like I might not be as aware of them either before, but it's a good opportunity for me to learn. So yeah, I'd like to do more of that. I don't know if I'll make it a regular thing, but when the opportunity arises, obviously, how does that change for next year? We'll wait and find out. What sort of prep goes into casting each match? Do you spend time watching VODs, both teams, stats, vocal warm-ups, yada, 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 storylines? So it depends on the role, but when it comes to Valorant, I always took more of the, I'm an expert role, right? So I have to break things down. I have to be able to explain. I have to predict what's going on with the team. So for me, I wasn't more of a stats guy, I was more of a tendency and pattern guy. So I was very much about VOD review. What does this team do? Have they played these maps before? What do they do? What are their defaults? What do their pistols look like? Okay, this way I can know, hey, so next round, this is probably what they're gonna do. And I can then say, do I think it's good or bad? So that was a big part. Now, and then like map draft and things like that. Now, stats, player stats, I don't usually look at too much, and also just because you can kind of look that up on the fly if you think there's something notable. But I might skim it if someone had if I'm like, hey, didn't that person have like a crazy, kill record or whatever? Like that's cool. But you can usually look that up on the fly. Team stats, I look at, but again, I wasn't as much of a stats person. I just used the basic stats as a basis, but then I would watch the VODs. But that doesn't mean I think you can cast very well with stats-based analysis as well. You just have to be able to interpret the stats in the right way. And then storylines for sure. Ideally, it's a team effort, but you should always be kind of thinking about where do I want to take this? Because even if you're the expert and the analyst, you want to have that in mind of where are we trying to go with this match? What are the story beats here so that your analysis can add to that? A long question, but basically asking, there's a lot of kind of dark or morally questionable parties now getting involved with sponsorships, whether it's government, military, gambling, betting companies. So was this always inevitable? With the way esports has gone, it was always inevitable because esports hasn't really figured out how to be self-sustaining as an entire industry. Well, self-sustaining is the wrong way to put it, but monetize itself, basically. So you're always relying on funding from something else. Esports hasn't really, I guess a better way to put it is esports hasn't really figured out how to market itself as a product, has it? And I think that's the problem. Now, do I think it was inevitable in that esports just isn't, it's impossible? No, I don't think so. I'm not saying it's easy, but I don't think so. I think we kind of missed a beat there, and I think hopefully enough people are still thinking about it. I've been spending more time thinking about that. But if that doesn't happen, then it was inevitable because you needed funding from somewhere. And the larger people think you have influence, everyone's going to want to join in, both good and bad. How do you think the open bracket format of next year will change the watch party experience for the casual viewer? I imagine it will be more exciting for the casual viewer, mostly just because the watch partiers will be more excited for the most part. But I do wonder if there's some value being lost in that if you're like a fan of a particular team and there's a dedicated watch partier for that team, but your team isn't really playing every week anymore, I wonder if there's some value lost there. How hard is it to do live translate from Korean to English and vice versa? Is it more of a vocab thing? So Korean and English generally is pretty hard, mostly because the grammar is complete opposite, so people get tripped up on that a lot, and also that means, so Korean, you can't know the actual intent of the sentence until the very end because the verb is at the end. So that's like a funny, kind of like an idiom in Korea that you always have to listen, you have to wait until there's a punctuation mark in Korean. So therefore, the pacing gets a little bit weird if you're doing live translating especially. But aside from that, for me, it depends. Like if you study translation in an academic setting, there are systems and ways to get around this, and then it's a lot of vocabulary. I think vocabulary is definitely important. Vocabulary is so important because also there's not always a one-to-one translation, so you need to find the right way to express it. But the way I do it is I basically understand it, and then I just tell that same message in the other language. And so if you're doing it the way I do it, the fluency matters, and so just being engaged in that language a lot matters, and hearing phrasing and how to speak and tell stories in that way. At what point in your career did esports stop feeling like a dream and start feeling like a job, and how did you fall back in love with it? So I mean, I don't know, maybe this is a bit of a downer, Debbie Downer. It was never really like a dream. Obviously it was a goal, but I didn't like grow up wanting to be in esports. So that's one thing. But I assume you just mean when did it become a job? It kind of felt like a job towards the end of my career at ESL when I was doing more producer work, and then eventually biz dev work, because I was having to learn to do more administrative work, but also I was getting more distant from the actual process of creating. And then there were just a lot of stressful learnings as well. So I think that was tough. How did I get back into it? I mean, I took some time off. Remind myself why I liked games in general. And then I got back into it. How much did Riot pay you when you casted? I mean, good question. I did say ask me anything. I'm not gonna answer that here in this video, but what I can tell you is for VCT Pacific specifically, what I was being paid would have been enough to be comfortable if I was single. Now, once I was married, I would argue that only VCT Pacific salary would not have been enough to feel comfortable. Now, that doesn't mean that we would have been starving or whatever, but it wouldn't have felt safe to take a mortgage on our apartment and things like that. So adding in other events was a necessity. But, again, I'm not trying to say that, therefore, like, I was at risk of being, going bankrupt. That's not what I'm saying. But if I wanted to have what I have right now and manage that, Pacific only would not have been enough. And therefore, obviously, losing Pacific was a bit of a blow because it's still the base salary. But yeah, that's what I can tell you. How did you convince your parents that you want to go in the industry, or were they supportive about you choosing the career? So I told myself I wasn't going to tell my parents that I wanted to work in esports until I got my first paycheck. I had to break that rule because I had to go to MLG Rally, but I didn't have clothes to wear as an interviewer because I wanted like cleaner dress shirts and stuff. So I had to ask my mom to take me clothes shopping, because at the time I was on break from school and I was basically living off of like just minimum allowance just to live from my parents. So I didn't really have extra money I could spend on just like extra clothes shopping, things like that, just the necessities. So I had to tell my mom. But at the time I told her, hey, listen, my goal was to not tell you guys until I got my first paycheck, but this is still something real. I'm not just doing it on my own channel. I'm doing it for another website, because at the time I had joined Monte Cristo's website at the time, GG Chronicles. So I was like, I'm doing this for them and I'm going to start working with them as well. And it is starting to build up. And then eventually my dad visited me as well in America, and I told them both, hey, this is the plan. By the way, here's what I'm doing. I'm now casting this, and laid it out for them. But I also made sure I had a very strict plan, and I said, hey, by this time, if I don't have a steady salary, I will go back to school and then I'll study to go to grad school. So I had that kind of backup plan to also give them a little bit of insurance. So I made sure, because by that time I thought I would like to think that I understood my parents decently well. So I put in a lot of effort in convincing them. Were they supportive? They were supportive in a realistic way because I laid out a plan. I think at the time my mom was still a little wary that it was in gaming, and she was like, I don't know if I like the idea of that. But now both of them have come around to it, and now they're very supportive. And even then I was thankful, because once I laid out the plan, they still supported me in realistic ways. They just didn't really understand it, but they've come around to it now. So I'm very, very, very thankful. What or who is your inspiration when you started being a caster, and how did you start learning from it? Similar question was asked later as well. I didn't really have a strict inspiration, but if I had to choose at the time, probably caster Jun and Dongjun, who were two casters out of in Korea for League of Legends before it was LCK. I think I learned a lot from them. And then I think obviously like Tastosis, especially at the time, the StarCraft duo, you learn a lot from them. But it wasn't any one particular person, because I've always just enjoyed broadcasting. So it was a lot of other things as well combined. Insane Jack, the question is, with the 2027 VST format, everyone can join. So would you like to create your own team to compete and maybe even qualify internationally? Yeah, I would actually. I think it'd be fun. It wouldn't be easy, and it would cost a lot, so I'd have to figure out a way, but I think it could be fun. Listen, if you've got a lot of cash lying around and you want to try to create a team, let me know in the comments below. Looking at your whole career, especially after Pacific, how did you find your footing again, and would you say that was the toughest period for you? Was that the toughest period? No, to be honest, the toughest period was after I left ESL, because I was just so burnt out on esports in general. And I had a lot of health complications at the time too. Like I was suffering insane insomnia, and then I was living in the States, in LA, where it's super expensive and medical is super expensive. And so that just wasn't a good time. So that was probably the toughest period I had. But this was also quite tough because, you know, I just got married, we had just moved into a new apartment, etc. And then 1 year later, I'm being told I'm not going to be invited back to cast. And that was like the base salary I was working off of, and then adding in other events. So it's like, wow, okay, like this was like a realistic problem I had to solve. So I couldn't, you know, it's not like I could move back into my parents and still try to build up my dream scenario. Like I had to solve this problem now. So it was tough. How did I stick to it? Well, I mean, for one, my wife was very supportive, but two, having the firm belief that I still have a goal that I think is a good goal and it is reachable and I'm capable of doing it, reminding myself of that. And then saying, okay, well, if obviously I can't just dream on, especially once you have your own family. So I have to figure out the realistic processes I have to take. But as long as I had that end goal in mind and then reverse engineering it, so that's how I was able to stick through it. It's funny, here you mentioned like, how do you still push through, like even when your streaming numbers aren't that good on YouTube? Thankfully, I mean, the main streaming platform is still Twitch. Now, even that's not that big, but it is growing. So I take solace in that. And also the support of those of you who do watch and engage. When I see that you're enjoying it, like I have faith that even if I'm not choosing the routes that are the easiest to build numbers, that I am building towards what I wanted to see and what I wanted to contribute. And so if it has to be slower, I'll take it slower. And if I have to do a side job to start making sure I can sustain this, then I'll do a side job because I don't want to compromise on my goal. Why did you leave Dota 2 after 2018? And please, is the OGTI run the best story ever? I didn't leave Dota 2. I mean, I left ESL, and that was the main platform through which I was working in Dota 2. So, I kind of took a break from esports in 2019. I was doing a couple events here and there, but I kind of took a break. But also, I think that just meant Dota 2 had, at the time, I think maybe still, but such a deep talent pool that at the time, taking a break just meant that opportunities went to other people, and I think that was well deserved because they were grinding away being dedicated to Dota 2. Also, I was more of a variety esports person at the time, you know, a caster and host and producer. So Dota 2 obviously has like really fanatic level people who get involved in it. And so I think it was just a natural progression. You know, Dota 2 is one that I miss a lot, but yeah, it's not like I was like, peace out, you know. It was just a natural progression of things. The OGTI run, I would agree, it's definitely one of, if not the best story. It did have everything, like the preamble, and then the breakdown, and then people ignoring them, and then the rise up, and then the grand finals. It did, and then the shoulder bump. It had everything. It had everything. It might be the best. It's definitely one of. It might be the best. How do you manage your marriage alongside other work like content creation and the like? It's tough. It's tough, especially when you're doing any type of freelance or self-employed work, because you always feel like it's a competition against yourself in time. And so just the more you put in, which it's just much easier to balance it when you're single because you can just dive into it. You just have to sacrifice your own other time, right? Of whether it's going out with friends or whatever. But when you're married and you have your own family, obviously it's tough because it's like you can sacrifice your own time, but you can't always sacrifice family time. And we've actually struggled with this a little bit, and I've been learning a lot. I think I've messed up quite a bit in the past year, but I'm learning more now, and I appreciate that my wife is patient with me about that. But it is just about always having to remind yourself of what's more important. So why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? There's twofold. One is there's an impact I want to leave. There's a goal I want to achieve, and that's the impact that I can leave on the community and the scene and the business. But two, it's also because I want to achieve that and provide for my family, and also set an example in a world, create a world for my family as well. And so if my family's not happy, I'm just straight up sacrificing one part. But there should still be ways, especially if I think I am good enough to achieve it, as long as I make sure my family is happy, even if it's slower, I should be able to achieve my goals, right? If I think I'm good enough to do it. And so I think it's always important to remind myself of that. Now there's reality things of like, well, I can't just like skip out on all the watch parties just to spend more time. Like there are things you have to compromise. But also I think something that we've learned is I have to be much, much clearer and transparent. I always thought I was pretty transparent, but our personality is different. So me just basically like speaking my thought process out loud of, hey, I think I'm gonna do this. I think I'm gonna stream this game. I think I'm gonna watch party this way. And portraying that to my wife so that she knows not only the plans, but she also knows that I am actually constantly building on that. Because otherwise, like, she doesn't know gaming or esports much. She's actually quite involved now because, especially because I'm partnered with Nongshim, so she has another team that she can also kind of be attached to. But aside from that, if I don't say that, she's just like, he's streaming. Like, where is it going? What is he doing, right? What is this for? So I've learned that I have to just like constantly, if I come up with an idea of, hey, I don't know what I'm gonna do this, but like this. And so we've learned that way of communication as well. But it's one of the reasons I changed my streaming schedule, because if I did it in the evening, we just had no time to spend together. And it's not even about like going out, but it's just like connecting and then building something together going forward. So that's one of the reasons why I changed to daytime streams as well.
What made you come to Valorant compared to other games, and what made you stay in the scene?
So I've always said, back when I was working in OGN, in like 2013, 2014, I've always told them that if Korea is ever playing the same FPS as the rest of the world, that I want to be casting that game, because I played a lot of FPSs, and I competed on like amateur ladders and stuff in Call of Duty back in the PC days. So I've always wanted to do that, but Korean was always playing its own versions of FPSs, right? So I never had the chance. So when Valorant came out, it was kind of a moment of, okay, well, it's Riot, so this could work in Korea. And it didn't start off strong, but I thought that there was definitely hope. So I wanted to get into it, and it just worked out. So in a lot of ways, Valorant kind of brought me back into wanting to cast again and things like that. And what made me stay? I mean, I enjoyed the game, the scene was growing, and I enjoyed what I was seeing. Do you think it's reasonable for teams to constantly be chasing new talent or overhauling rosters? Now, there's a bit of a wall of text here. It seems like you used G2 and Paper X's changes this past year as an example, which I don't think is entirely fair. I know some of them felt a little shocking given that they were both relatively successful rosters. I mean, I think Paper X is probably a bit more shocking in a lot of ways since they had just won A Masters, but I don't think that counts as them just blindly chasing new talent and whatnot. And it, from the rumors that we heard, G2 sounds like it was perhaps a more complicated situation as well. So I don't think that's necessarily true, but I do think the VCT system doesn't really encourage long-term building. The VCT system actually pushes you to just like constantly try to fix it by fixing rosters, because you don't have much time. And if you don't make an international, or if you don't win an international, you're considered a failure because you only have so many chances throughout the year. So I think the system doesn't help. Now, will the open system next year make it better? I don't know, hopefully. This game pub is really big. Give me a second. Which of these two anime would you rather watch? Imagine someone kidnapped you and tied you to a chair. Okay, so I'm forced to watch these. Number 1, backstabbed in a backwater dungeon. My trusted companions tried to kill me, but thanks to the gift of an unlimited gacha, I got level 9,999 friends, and I'm out for revenge on my former party members and the world. Or 2, Arknights, but all 3 seasons for a total of 24 episodes. This seems to imply that the backstabbed in a backwater dungeon, my trusted companions tried to kill me, but thanks to the gift of an unlimited gacha, I got level 9,999 friends, and I'm out for revenge on my former party members and the world, has less episodes? But 24 episodes doesn't sound that bad. That title is crazy, by the way. I'm going to choose Arknights. I'm familiar with the material at least a little bit, and this is ridiculous. The backwater dungeon is ridiculous. Also, isn't it just not fun if you get unlimited gacha and you can just pull 9,999 level characters? That doesn't sound fun. When you're casting a match, how do you balance telling the story you expect to unfold versus reacting honestly to what's actually happening in real time? And have you ever felt like your narrative bias made you miss the true moment? So yes, I've had that happen for sure. But I like this question because it's actually such an important part of casting. So I've definitely had a couple times where I've made that mistake, and I kind of caught myself a bit too late. And I'll try to remedy it whenever I do catch it, but then you have to aim for something lower, right? Because you've missed a certain amount of time. How do you balance that though? I think the best way that I've come around to it is understanding that building towards something and the result being different is still a good story, right? So I don't have to shoehorn it. I don't have to feel like it was wrong or a disappointment just because what I was building wasn't what was happening. But if I've set something up and the result is different, then that means that was a surprising part, and that's drama as well. Drama not as in, that you're like drama farming, but drama as in like a story. So coming around to that, I think, is important. But to do that, you have to be confident in the story that you were building, and that was a very important part. And if something else happens, now that's the twist, and that should be adding to your story. And you have to accept that. I think it's the same with analysis though, is that if you're predicting analysis, you have to be confident in what you're saying so that even if something else happens, that there's the surprise factor is actually the cool part. And when you come around to that you don't always have to be right, then you can tell a better story. Have you tried mee goreng? If so, what flavor of nongshim or other noodles you think would mix best with mee goreng? Just curious. I have tried mee goreng, but I don't know how authentic it was every time I've tried it. I've enjoyed it though. What would mix best? The thing is when it comes to nongshim noodles, Shin ramyeon is just, it's like safe to mix with anything because it's got a kick, but it's not like super strong and unique that it fights against other flavors. It can usually add on to it. So I think Shin's fine, but I imagine my more recent favorite out of the nongshim noodles, which is muppama, which is radish, green onion, garlic. It's shortened for, it's an acronym. And I feel like garlic would be nice, but maybe I just like garlic. Who are your favorite players to talk or ask questions to? If you haven't noticed, Stacks is a good one because I feel like I can throw him some hard-hitting questions or kind of poke fun at him and he'll still take it in stride. I think in terms of just talking to, Domby's actually great to talk to. He's a great chatter. He's just kind of down to hang out and chit chat. So Domby's great. I always remember one of the interviews that sticks with me the most when it comes to other players outside of Pacific is I used to do the remote interview and translations for the Korean broadcast. And I interviewed Mystic once. I forget which match it was though, when he was on Fnatic. And he was the most jolly guy. He was just down to answer anything and everything. So I even took like a question that a lot of the Korean viewers had in chat during the match. And kind of a fun one. It was, what are you drinking? Like in your Red Bull cups. And so he had like fun answering and telling us like what his teammates drink and things like that. So that was a really fun interview. As a longtime viewer, did you ever think that you would be a co-streamer for SPG after that epic match and that this team would go on to win Masters? And also, why do you like the Wasteland Bundle so much? So you put in 2 questions there, but I'll include the Wasteland Bundle one because the Wasteland Bundle is the best. It's just raw. It makes me feel like I'm actually trying to survive and fight, you know? It's not like some fancy schmancy toy. I mean, it's a weapon. So that's why I like it. It's the best. You should all just come to terms with that. Did I ever think that I would be a co-streamer for that roster, the SPG roster? No, definitely not. Because at the time I was imagining I was still gonna be casting. And that they would go on to win Masters, I thought that might be possible. In fact, I was not like realistically, but I had hope when they first qualified that they might even make it in 2025. And obviously I was very wrong about that. Handsome Hawk, does crime pay? Asking for a friend. No, it does not. Stop your friend right now. What's your 3rd favorite color? This is a good one. This is a good one. Everyone asks what your favorite color is. But my 3rd favorite, I know my top 2 favorite colors, like always. I've never really thought about my 3rd favorite color. I'm torn between 2, but I think I'm gonna have to go with pink. I think pink is my 3rd favorite color. How did you meet your wife? Obviously, it's a bit of a long story, but just to keep it short, we had a mutual acquaintance. So I had worked with this friend on some Valorant broadcasts actually in the earlier days. And then my wife had worked with her in the past for other broadcasts. So they just connected us and they just thought we would be a good fit. The funny part about this is on paper at first, I just found it really amusing because my wife used to just like really dislike people who played games. She didn't understand gaming, etc. And she had zero interest in learning English or, you know, having to engage in English. And here we are, you know, at the time dating, and her boyfriend is a guy who makes a living off of speaking English for video games. So it was like, I don't know how you made this connection, but they just thought our personality would match and they were entirely correct. If you were to become a coach of a team, what would be your main priority starting out? Mine would be fundamentals for sure. Mine would be fundamentals 100%. What's something about the esports industry that fans almost never see but every pro player eventually experiences? I'm not sure if there's something that the pro and players experience that the fans never see, especially these days just because pros are pretty vocal on social media. Like obviously they're not telling everything, but I'm also, just for clarity, obviously I've worked with teams both directly and indirectly, but I wouldn't be confident in saying that I know everything a pro goes through. But I think there's 2 things. One is probably just exactly how draining it can be to manage like media and social media and sponsor obligations. And that like a lot of it is an act for the pros as well. So that's probably one. Another, I think, though, is, and fans see this, but I don't think they fully realize that a lot of esports players, I think, are hit with the reality that at a certain point, you don't know what you're going to do next because there isn't really a clear path. The obvious clear path is coaching and then streaming. And these days, thankfully, streaming and content creation is a big thing. So if you've made it a decent amount in terms of level, then yeah, you might have an okay following to at least continue that. But there's not really a great pathway. And I wouldn't say, I mean, even for traditional sports, you can make a ton of money, but if you just have no guidance and no education on what to do next, obviously it doesn't end very well. So I think that's always a tough one. I've had that conversation with a couple pros in the past where they just suddenly, like, I don't think they're ready to retire yet, but they're suddenly just hit with this reality and they're like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. Like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. And it's like, what do you tell them, right? It's like, well, you could try coaching or casting. And casting is another option, but both of those require different skill sets as well that you may or may not have. So that's always tough. I would say the last thing is, I mean, you just don't see how much time they put in, right? You can hear about it, but you don't really feel it, especially if it's a team house scenario, living in a team house nonstop, practicing nonstop. That's draining. It's very draining. Do you think someone just watching Valorant is able to have high knowledge that they can coach a team? And also, if someone approached you and gave you a blank check asking you to coach their team, would you take it? So in terms of the blank check, I would only take it if it's tier 2, mainly because as much as I firmly believe that I have great skill sets to become a coach, not solo, but to become a coach and maybe even identify other people, other coaches to supplement my weaknesses. I am very confident in that skill set. However, doing something at the top level is always a different lesson. Right? No matter what experience you have, the first time is always going to be a learning experience. And I think it'd be incredibly cocky and rude of me to imagine that I could just do it in tier 1. So I think I would only do that if it was tier 2 because I would feel better about being able to learn from my mistakes and such. And then I could slowly ramp into it. And even then, you would still learn new things when you get to tier 1. But I think that would just be it. I just think it'd be quite disrespectful to the job if I was like, oh yeah, no, I could do it in tier 1. And I think that would just be, there's too much risk of career suicide at that point. Or there's too much risk of career explosion at that point. But can someone coach just by watching? No. You'd have to be watching with intent, which generally, if you're only watching live matches, you are not able to always do because you get caught up in it. So the short answer is no. What are your thoughts on adding 1 to 2 agent ban system in VCT to make every matchup feel unique? And then also, if this was implemented, do you think it should apply to ranked games? So the first answer is no. I don't think it should happen. I don't think we have enough agents for it. And I think also the way that the game is balanced right now between agents and maps, there are certain maps that would just become kind of unbearable if you banned certain agents, or, you know, the entire style would have to change. There's still not enough options that you can kind of just, oh, well, it's just slightly different, but we can mix and match. I think we're getting there, but I don't think that's necessary. I've talked with, I think Anders had mentioned this before to me, where he said, but I think a draft would be cool with no bans. So you still take turns, you can still repeat, but you take turns. So like they pick Viper and you're like, oh, okay, do we just pick the Viper right away ourselves, or do we showcase that we're ready to fight against the Viper with something like, you know, a Phoenix? So that, I think, could be interesting. I don't know how many teams would take advantage of that though if that system existed. But yeah, I don't think the game's ready yet. Maybe down the road where we have like too many agents. I think bans should really only be part of it when there's too many agents, because otherwise it really warps the meta and balance of the game, I think. But when it does come to it, should it be included in ranked? That's a tough one. I don't necessarily think so, just because it would draw out the gameplay time and would make it more of an obstacle for the casual players. All right, this is the last one that's gonna be specifically reserved for the membership video. SteelShot362. You're in a 1v5 clutch. What agent are you picking to actually survive this, and why? Ooh. There's a couple that come to mind immediately. Omen is one, Phoenix is another, and then Cypher. I love clutching as Cypher. It's just so fun. It's just so in character too. Well, not lore-wise, I guess. He always loses, but in the lore videos, but just his personality-wise. So all those three. The safest answer would be Omen. I think having smokes is so important in a clutch, but also he has a blind and he's got TPs. Like, he's got everything, really. Omen's the best all-around character in my opinion. So Omen's the safe answer. Okay, let's put it this way. Omen's the safest answer. Currently probably Phoenix, because I've played more Phoenix recently, and he's also just really good right now. And then just if it was like me for fun, it would be Cypher, even in his current weak state. I guess why? Well, Omen I explained. I mean, Phoenix I think is self-explanatory. Cypher also, like, having the cyber cages as like a mini smoke, I always like that. And then you can still kind of craft your way out of those situations and get that intel with the things like the trip and, you know, the cipher cam and things like that. I don't know. There's just some level of trickery that you can do with Cypher that I really like. The cyber cages are probably the biggest part, though. All right, so that's it for the main video. Now, if your question wasn't included or if you had multiple questions but you'd like to hear those answers, they are going to be out in a different membership video. So please consider signing up for membership, even if it's just for that 1 month, just to check out this video and maybe a couple of the other VODs. If you sign up for membership, what do you get? Well, any variety streams that we do, or basically any non-watch party streams that we do, are saved under membership VODs. So you can always check those out. Don't worry, watch parties will always be public. But on top of that, I promise I'll be making more membership content this year. So maybe if more of you sign up, I'd have more pressure to do it, but it's on me first. So don't worry, I'll be getting those videos out. But that's the main gist. Like this, you could hear more answers. But otherwise, thank you so much again for reaching the 10K subs. All of you subscribed to the channel. I really appreciate it. Whether you're just lurking and watching the videos, whether you're commenting and giving me feedback, whether you're hanging out in the live streams, all of that means a ton to me. And here's to hopefully many more. So if you haven't subscribed and you're just running across this video, please consider a subscription. Definitely let me know down in the comments below which one of these was your favorite answer. And before we go, I just forgot, I have to pick 2 questions for winners for our Valorant skin / potential Steam game, depending on whether we can get the skin to you or not. Okay, I know one that I'm gonna choose. Oh shoot, where did it go? Sapperson 1999. What is your 3rd favorite color? I like this one. It's a twist on a usual question. It's a simple one, but I'd never thought about it, so you made me really think about it. So I like that. And then I am going to go with Tuyakami's question. It's so dumb, but I think you've even mentioned this anime name before as well, but it sticks with me. Which of these 2 would you watch? Backstab in a backwater dungeon, my trusted companions tried to kill me, but thanks to the gift of an unlimited gacha, I got level 9,999 friends, and I'm out for revenge on my former party members of the world, or Arknights. I mean, you got me. It sticks. It sticks. So it's such a silly question. I don't even know the context here. Anyway, Sapperson and Tuyakami. We've actually had a lot of good questions, especially most of you asked a lot about esports, and I think that's great to see that you all have a lot of interest and investment in the scene and the industry. But it'd be so hard to choose, like, which of those was just better. I think I really do appreciate all those and giving me a chance to talk about it. But hey, hopefully we can do more of these in the future, and maybe we'll pick some more serious ones in the future as well. But Sapperson and Tuyakami, please, I'll leave a comment down below, respond there, or you know, if you're on the Discord, we'll talk there and we'll figure out a way to get you your rewards, your prizes. But otherwise, thank you so much to everyone who submitted a question, and hopefully I'll see you either in the streams or in the comments in future videos. Thank you very much. Have a good one.